ฝากกดติดตามและกดไลค์กดแชร์ CPN Thailand
Today, most scholars agree that the Dead Sea Scrolls were copied more than 2,000 years ago by an ancient Jewish sect. They were hidden in the caves of Qumran and discovered in 1947. But new DNA tests on the scrolls suggest that not all of them came from Qumran.
More than 70 years after their discovery, fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls are still being counted, studied, and translated. A monumental task, considering that there are tens of thousands of fragments from nearly 1,000 different documents. A handwriting analysis of the Dead Sea Scrolls reveals that they were copied by as many as 500 different scribes.
There were thousands and thousands of scrolls placed in these caves. We only have a tiny, tiny fragment of the total number of scrolls that were originally put in the caves close to the site of Qumran. And that makes it hard to imagine that all of them came from a tiny little site in Qumran.
That idea has now been confirmed by a series of DNA tests performed on some of the 2,000-year-old fragments. It all started in 2012 when a molecular biologist and a biblical scholar met on a bus.
And each of us told the other what we're doing in terms of our research, and we thought it might be very cool to cooperate and to see what we can obtain.
Professors Noham Mizrahi and Oded Ruhavi decided to test the DNA on some of the scroll fragments. But first they had to convince the organization in charge of the scrolls, the Israel Antiquities Authority.
Before we can even sample the scrolls, we had to demonstrate that it's possible to get enough material. So the people at the Israel Antiquities Authorities, they just gave us in the beginning duct tape that was removed from different scrolls. And we analyzed the DNA from the duct tape. Now, only later when we showed that this is even possible and we can get enough information without destroying these precious materials, we can move on to the more important and real materials and samples.
Even with the small samples, the results were astonishing.
Imagine we are only sequencing scroll dust, 2,000-year-old, that the skin was processed to make the parchment. And later it was preserved in caves for 2,000 years. Still, despite all the contaminations of the different people that touched the scrolls, we were able to find enough animal DNA to say something about the scrolls, which is remarkable in my opinion.
Almost all of the samples tested were made of sheepskin, except 2 from the book of Jeremiah, which yielded some of the study's most intriguing results.
We actually sampled fragments that represent 4 different copies of Jeremiah. This particular prophetic book has one of the most complicated textual histories among all the prophetic books of the Hebrew Bible.
The 4 Jeremiah scrolls represent 3 different versions of the book. A longer version, based on the Masoretic text that's in most modern Bible translations today. A shorter version, based on the Greek Septuagint. And a third version of the book that was somewhere in the middle.
Which means that the people there in Qumran held at the same time different versions of the book. And unlike today, where we have the exact same version, all of us, they were open to different versions and to different interpretations.
But what surprised the team most was not the text, but what it was written on.
Originally, these different pieces were thought to come from the same scroll. However, we were very much surprised to find that 2 of the scrolls pieces were written on sheepskin, while 2 were written on cow hide.
Since cows need grass and water, they could not have survived in the desert near Qumran, which means that at least 2 of the copies of Jeremiah came from somewhere else.
We can't say for sure that a particular scroll was written in Qumran, but we can say with a fair amount of confidence that some pieces, samples, came from outside of Qumran. And we learned that the texts that were common in Qumran were also popular outside of Qumran.
It takes a lot of time, lots of effort to write a scroll. And they suggested that perhaps originally the scrolls came from the library of the temple in Jerusalem, and before the Roman conquest, or Jewish revolt, they were moved to be hiding here in the caves.
So I think that we solved some mysteries, we uncovered some new mysteries, and most importantly, we discovered that we still have much, much to learn and new mysteries to uncover. We have a few other mysteries that we would like to solve. We have a long wish list, and we will see how much of that wish list we will manage to obtain in the years to come.
Patience.